Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Colette. I hope everyone is having a fantastic Monday morning so far. We are broadcasting live from Cape May County, New Jersey via the Exceptional Conservative Network and SHR Media. I am your host, Melanie Colette. Happy to be with you this morning. It is going to be a gorgeous day today in Cape May County. It's 52 degrees, or at least it will be very soon. Joining us today is Steve Beaman, who is a CEO, entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist. Totally self-made man. So I'm very interested in speaking with him this morning. It should be a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to talk to him about various financial news topics of the day and also what it takes to be successful in business. But before we do so, a bit of housekeeping. If you would like to tweet me, follow me on Twitter. You can do so at Money Talk Mel, or follow me on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie. Also, if you would like to send me an email, give me show topic ideas, etc., you can do so at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Should you miss the show, you can also look the show up on YouTube by doing the search on YouTube at Money Talk with Melanie. In addition, if you would like to join our long list of esteemed guests, such as the one we have this morning in Mr. Beaman, you can do so by going to the Exceptional Conservative Show website and clicking on Contact Us and filling out the brief bit of information, and we will get back to you about being on the show. Some of the people that we've had on the show, in addition to Mr. Beaman, we've had Senator Ted Harvey, we had Senator Elbert Guillory last week, Ebony K. Williams, Dr. Brooks Robinson, who's our official economist of the Exceptional Conservative Network. So if you'd like to join that list of esteemed guests, you can click on Contact Us, send us your information, or you can give us a call at 202-660-1329. And we always appreciate having fantastic experts on our show. So please do contact us in that regard. What else do we have? So it's Monday. I can tell, I can feel it. I'm feeling like every bit of Monday this morning. If you are listening on Spreaker and you want to see my Monday morning face live on Ustream, you can go to the exceptionalconservativeshow.com and watch me Ustreaming live by going to the exceptionalconservativeshow.com, which is where I'm supposed to be right now. I can't believe I didn't go there. The exceptionalconservativeshow.com, and click on tecn.biz tab, and we could chat live right there, which is really awesome. And there are a few of our listeners there. I'm also streaming live. I have on a really cool red sweater. I was feeling like red today. So you can go there and we can chat. And also, Mr. Beaman will be here. And if you have any questions for Mr. Beaman, you can ask, and I will certainly pass that question along to him. The guests really like to talk to people from the chat room. So go there, chat, and you can talk to the guests. It's really cool to get an opportunity to talk to experts. One of the things that we're going to speak with him about are just the opportunities that we have in an economic upswing with our new president. It's a very optimistic economic environment that we're in, and one of the things that I want to talk to him about is how we can take advantage of it, particularly if we've been, someone who hasn't made the best economic decisions in our lives. And I think, all of us have been at some point in time where we haven't made the best decisions. So I'm going to ask him what he thinks about that. Anywho, what's going on in the news? Yahoo News, I was doing a bit of research this morning. There's a recall. So if you own a Ford truck, listen up. Particularly if you own a 2017 Ford F-250 gasoline-powered 6.2-liter vehicle built at the Kentucky assembly plant, October 9th, 2015 to March 30th, 2017. There's been a recall. It's 52,000 trucks because there's a manufacturing error causing the vehicle to roll even when it is parked. According to an official statement over the weekend, the company has advised all the users to use a handbrake when you put the car in park mode. So just an FYI for all you big old Ford F-250 truck owners who own trucks during that time. I would just take a look at it. Make sure you're very, very careful out there. So far, there haven't been any accidents or anything reported, but you want to be careful. So I wanted to make sure that I let everybody know about that recall. Of course, our president is in the news because, that's what he does. No, actually, he's just really, really quite busy. So on Friday, he signed 2 executive orders aimed at the trade deficit, which he talked a lot about over the campaign season. So he one of the executive orders that he signed, there were 2, asked the Commerce Department to do a report to identify every possible cause of the trade deficit. Now I'm gonna tell you, this sounds kind of like a little bit of smoke and mirrors buffoonery, but as I'm one of those like process people and doing things right kind of people, and it's actually really the right thing to do. A lot of times government does not do this. They just kind of do things, but this is actually the right thing to do. Sometimes the government gets accused of, I don't know, overstudying, but many times they just do stuff without knowing what they're doing. So this I like. And now, but the key is going to be follow through. You do the study and then you follow the study. You don't do the study and then do the opposite of what the study says. So this is a good first step, in my opinion. So the executive order said to do a comprehensive study of every possible cause of the U.S. trade deficit. Perfect. Now, the other order that he signed focused on anti-dumping laws and making sure that, and you would think this is obvious, right? Making sure they are collecting the penalties. So they passed this law where there's supposed to be penalties for, countervailing duties is what it's called. And that's a mechanism so that when foreign governments are not doing what they're supposed to do, when they sell goods at below market prices, it targets exporters that sell goods below the cost of production. And this cost the country in the area of $2.8 billion in import taxes that we did not collect, okay, over the span of 15 years, from 2001 to 2016. So this is, a serious amount of money. And this is, this is an area where having a businessman in office is a good thing. Because, businessmen don't do well with losses, especially losses like this. It's a lot of money. So the other bill that he signed said, hey, let's go after this money. Let's take care of this. So that was the other order that he signed. So hopefully they're going to go ahead and go after this money and handle it. Let's fraud, abuse, waste. This is that kind of thing. Like, before we start doing new things, before we start asking the public for more money, can we take care of the stuff that we already said we were going to do? Maybe. So I'm liking that. The last big thing that's happening. Oh gosh. I got to make sure I cover the Gorsuch nomination, but I got to get to March Madness. So I can't believe I said the last big thing. But Gorsuch confirmation should be this week. The Democrats are talking about filibustering, but they're still not sure if that's really going to happen. They're still, I was going to say ticked off. I was going to use the bad word for that, the P word, but they're still ticked off about their nominee not even getting a vote when Obama was in office. My advice to them is to get over themselves. People who are pro Gorsuch are saying, he's highly qualified because he's an originalist, just like the person he's replacing, Antonin Scalia, who unfortunately passed away suddenly. And people who are anti Judge Gorsuch thinks that he has a bad record on workers' rights and women's health, which is just an excuse. If he's confirmed, he'll be the youngest justice ever, which means he's going to be, it's a lifelong appointment, and he'll be in there a very, very long time. On the March Madness front, it is going to be, wait a minute, it's going to be, wait a minute. Oh, North Carolina. Wait, they're facing last year. Okay. Over the weekend. How did I miss over the weekend? Let me read this now. Over the weekend in the Final Four, Mississippi State beat UConn. Oh, right, Mississippi State. Right. Is facing North Carolina. There you go. So, and that game is going to happen at 9:20 p.m. tonight. Should be very exciting. As you can tell, I don't watch basketball. I know, it's terrible. I'm so sorry. Just forgive me. But it should be an exciting game for those of you who are watching. Good luck in everybody's brackets. When we get back on the other side of the break, we will have our guest, Steve Beaman, who is fantastic in all things finance, and we'll get to ask him all kinds of fantastic questions about the free market. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We will be back in a few moments.
It's time to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. Ken McClinton and the Exceptional Conservative Show celebrate 7 years of excellence in broadcasting here on the Exceptional Conservative Network. 9:05 p.m. Monday through Thursday, the finest in conservative talk anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to celebrate!
Hello, this is Leslie Ann Stoffel with The Real Clear Israel. Join me every Sunday morning at 10:05 Eastern Time on the Exceptional Conservative Network, where we'll be discussing Israel with guests from Israel and around the world.
That's The Real Clear Israel, 10:05 Sunday on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Good morning.
I'm Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon, and you're Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We are The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Live on SHR Media.
And on TECN.
Where we'll be talking about all kinds of things.
From sports and politics.
To food and entertainment.
To money.
Family.
And anything else in between.
Community, holidays, all kinds of things.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, conservative by choice.
Hello?
It's Reverend Ralph
Hello,
Kittle,
Steve Beaman
the right
available?
On
No.
the Exceptional Conservative Network from 4:05 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The Right Guy on TECN.
From the war front to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursday.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Oh, thank you so much for being on. We're actually 30 seconds out to air. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Jersey Joe.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And how's my sound quality?
It sounds fantastic. How do I sound?
Okay, very good.
Good. Last name's pronounced Beaman. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
Can you hear me?
I am having a touch of a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. Let's see. How about? Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn this particular promo up a little bit.
And listen, there are no people better on the air
give you the best in conservative
How about
talk.
now?
The Sack is Sean and
That's
Sack
a little bit
Clinton.
better.
Okay.
We're working on immigration paperwork.
you're
Yeah,
la-
I'm getting some bleed in from your producers.
Okay. How about now, Beaman? Is that?
Around the
Can you hear me
world,
now?
the best
I
late
can.
night
Okay.
conservative talk.
And your last name's
Radio.
pronounced Beaman?
Yes, it is. Beaman. B-E-A-M-A-N, man, but Beaman.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Cool.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America. And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Good morning. We are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette. And we have with us this morning Mr. Steve Beaman. He is a CEO, entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist. Good morning. How are you, Mr. Beaman?
Well, I'm very well, and I so appreciate being on this program with you. It's a wonderful program. I've listened to several of them, and I really love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I did not know you had listened to the show before. Thank you so much. I'm very glad. Mr. Beaman is a 30-year veteran in the financial industry. So I'm really excited to speak with him this morning. Can you give the audience a little bit more of your background, just a few more details that I haven't covered already, because it is really extensive.
Well, sure. I'll give them the quick background. I started in finance in the 80s as a broker for E.F. Hutton, and then I grew from the retail side to the institutional side, and my public career culminated in the sale of Chicago Investment Analytics, which is a company I co-founded. I sold that to Charles Schwab in 2000, and then I started a private equity company, and I've made numerous investments through that, up to and including producing a movie. I am chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education, and I spend a lot of time talking to folks about economics and finance and giving speeches and trying to help people understand how to build a better life.
Excellent. Excellent. That is fantastic. Now, one of the things that I found out about you is that you are a self-made millionaire. What exactly does that, when people hear that terminology, a self-made millionaire, what exactly does that mean? Because a lot of people, I think, especially in this era of, the haves and the have-nots and the, I feel like when people say, you have the 99 percenters, the 1 percenters, people tend to think, people approach that, especially the media, with the thought that people just roll out of bed having money. And so I'm always, you know what I mean?
Like I wish that were the case.
Right? It just blows my mind when I hear people say, the haves and the have-nots, like somebody just woke up one day and they had,
Well, let me share with you some quick background there. When I was 23 years old, I was broke, bankrupt, no college degree, living in my car without the money to eat. I subsequently polished off my boots, lifted myself up by my own bootstraps, and devoted myself to learning all that I could ever learn, and I became a big fan of understanding the world around me and reading and reading and more reading, and then that obviously led me to starting my own company, which is where I got my money.
Okay, now did you have an extensive education already, or how did that work, or did you looked it up? How did that? Okay.
I'm proud to say that I have a high school diploma. I did attend college for a couple of years, but I ran out of money and wasn't able to finish my degree. So no, I don't have an extensive educational background. But through even early years, I learned how to read, and that is a fundamental part of knowledge, is just the love of reading. And so I would consider myself largely self-taught as well.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that. And I think that's important because, many people, especially with the advent of the internet, we have so much more access to information than years ago, than our parents did. anything can be Googled. And I try to remind people all the time that, you can Google things beyond like, pictures of Justin Bieber or, or the Atlanta
Let's hope
Housewives.
they do, right?
You know what I mean? Like the internet can be used for so much more than what we use it for. You can actually, look up things that are really important, really good, information to help yourself. And so I just think that is important to point out, that you can certainly self-educate if you have the will and the tenacity. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think you're so right. We live in an age today in which lifelong education is not just possible, but it's almost demanded of us. And using the tools available through the internet, we are able to get the best and the brightest educators in the world to come right to our home PC. You don't necessarily have to have the piece of paper that connotes the degree, although I think that helps. I think it's more a function of our desire and, to your point, our willingness and our diligence in putting forth the effort to learn what we need to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, TED Talks is a perfect example. I mean, you have a wealth of information on that website. And if anybody doesn't know, anyone in the audience is not aware of what I'm referring to, just Google TED Talks, TEDE space talks, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There you have access to a wealth of experts in their industry on a wide variety of topics. And it's a wealth of information.
I think it's super. And I think programs like yours are useful in educating people. Instead of listening to the dribble that comes out of Howard Stern, I think they can focus on your program for an hour a day, and it will lift them up with knowledge they need to know to build that thriving and prosperous life in a new idea-based generation.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And having experts on like yourself is integral and making shows like mine happen. I learned one of the things that my show is relatively new, but one of the things that people have been asking me is, are you having fun? And I always tell them I'm having a great time because I am always learning. I'm a super nerd, and and I love to learn. So
and you're honest.
You know what? That is absolutely key. You know what I mean? You have to be honest. But I'm a super nerd, and I love to learn. And I learn something from every single guest that I have on. And that's a huge, huge benefit. Speaking of which, you wrote a book that came out, I believe, last year. At least I saw on Amazon. It had a production date of 2016, called The American Dream Under Fire. How progressive values threaten our financial future. And I wanted to talk to you about that, especially in the context of us having our unexpected president Trump. And it talks about entrepreneurial values from, the beginning of the United States till now. And of course, like I said, we have this unexpected president that we have now. And I'm not sure that you quite expected that when you wrote the book. So
well, let me just give you a quick background on that. I wrote that book literally on a Sunday.
Really?
And I did it because Saturday night, and this goes back a couple years ago, I had dinner with some friends, and one of the people there was talking about how America, is no longer the land of opportunity. And I thought, well, no, it is, but it's changing. And that book is as much a cultural commentary as anything else, because we've gone from a nation of entrepreneurs, of that idea, again, of rugged individualism, to a nation that's now seeking more collective security, both economically and politically. And as that transition happens, you're losing the entrepreneurial base. And one of the statistics that shocked me is in 2015, more companies in America folded and closed down than were started. And I think that tells a huge story about the fact that we're disincentivizing small business in the favor of the great big companies, and they're not the innovators. It's small companies that do the innovation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They certainly are. They certainly are. Do you see that changing in light of the new president that we have, who certainly seems to be pro-business?
Well, I would suggest a couple of things. First, I think Donald Trump was not as much a positive vote, if you will, as it was a negative vote. And what I mean by that is that I think a lot of folks that voted for Trump didn't really vote for him. They voted against the Washington establishment, and they voted against the Democratic candidate. With that said, I do think Trump brings in a much more pro-business mindset, but whether or not that takes hold in our culture is largely a function of the success of his policies. If he's successful in cutting regulation and cutting taxes, and that leads to the kind of economic boom we all hope it will, then I think it could take hold in this country once again, and people would see the light and say, wow, that really worked again. If he doesn't do that and he fails, I really fear that the next president could be along the Bernie Sanders line, because people will say, oh, it didn't work. We need to go more the European route. And that's a frightening thought to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, he was really, you have to think, especially doing a little analysis of this last election cycle, what would have happened had the Democrats not really manipulated this election cycle and had Bernie Sanders won the Democratic nomination.
Yeah, I think it would have been a whole different race, but these are clearly two different ideologies. You have socialism on one hand, which is government allocation of resources, always looking in the rear view mirror of economics to try to solve problems that were, versus capitalism that looks forward and tries to solve problems that will be. That's why in capitalistic countries, the rising tide lifts all boats, as opposed to the socialist/communist countries that really do sink into this misery index of mediocrity. Back in the early 90s, I worked with Soviet companies who were beginning to reach out of the Soviet Union under glasnost and perestroika. And to talk to them about the fundamentals of competitive economies was so foreign to them. But we would go to grocery stores and they could not fathom why we had so many types of cereal at such high quality and low cost. And I explained to them it's the competitive nature of a free market. And it does work, but we need to keep that in this country and not succumb to the siren's call of freebies and social welfare and all those things that feel good and sound good.
Exactly. And you know, speaking of which, it's I can see a whole bunch of things, and I don't know if you feel the same way, that are tied together with the millennials. I listened to a couple of the interviews on your website, and a few of the interviews that you participated in, you talked about how the millennials and the Bernie Sanders thing, and how they did not seem to be very positive about their future, and justifiably so, which gave rise to Bernie Sanders' popularity. And you know, when he dropped out, a lot of millennials seemed to lose their enthusiasm for government and for participating in the process, and seem to be very pessimistic as a result.
You're exactly right, and I think we're hitting one of the challenges of the upcoming generation is that they've been raised in a large way in an economy that has been in transition. We're coming through the capitalistic times in the world, moving to what I've referred to as a post-capitalist economy in which ideas more than capital are the driving force. As that's happened, their parents are scared. Parents are going through this economic transition. We're looking at our country with $20 trillion in debt, $600 billion deficits, and there's fear. And so these kids have grown up in this concern about what tomorrow will bring, and they have failed to have been educated on the benefits of the free market. And so they go to the natural concept that gives security, and that's the Bernie Sanders ideology.
And you know what else is going on? Full disclosure, I'm a former public school high school teacher, and I'm also an adjunct professor. So I had to get out of public school. They were driving me insane. But but you know, in those environments, they're being indoctrinated to think that way. So you know, because this election was so contentious, especially in the high schools, you know, everyone was aware of what was going on, especially my juniors and seniors, and they were even talking about the elections. And many of my students would say, you know, that they were socialists, and I'm like, I guess you are. Your parents pay for everything. your lives by definition are social are socialist.
Well, that's right. But again, we go back to an era before in this country, and I'm not that old. I'm 55, so in some ways I'm a dinosaur, but in other ways I'm not that old. But I grew up in an era in the 70s in which you were expected to have work during high school.
Right.
You were expected to pay for most of your own college, and that's completely switched in this country now, where it's considered wrong to work during high school. And it's considered. I have a daughter who's entering law school, and they said flat out, "You're not allowed to work."
Wow.
And I have a son who attends a music school, and one of the music professors said to him, "If you're working and paying for your college, then you really can't be a musician. You need to be devoted full time to music."
Yeah. See, this is the and that's what kind of where I was going with that, is that this is the mentality, the overall mentality that you are dealing with. This is the prevailing mentality that you're dealing with. This liberalism that you're dealing with, this entitlement that you're dealing with, that gave way, in my opinion, to the rise of Bernie Sanders, and that's what is frightening. And that gets around to my original point, is you have to wonder what would have happened had the Democrats not manipulated the election so that Bernie Sanders lost the primary.
Let's just be thankful they did.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I truly believe that they also manipulated it so that Donald Trump would win the primary, in their hubris, thinking that he was beatable.
Oh, no, I think there's no question. Politics is played like that, and they saw him as the low probability candidate. What they didn't realize, and I think they still fail to realize, is that America at its core is sick and tired of Washington screwing things up. I gave a speech at the Chicago Federal Reserve, and I apologize for going off on a tangent, but I think it's relevant.
No, please do.
During that speech, I was asked what I believe to be the cause of the poverty and shootings, murders in Chicago was.
Oh, please go.
And I said very openly, we can thank the Great Society.
Yep.
We went to people in the 60s and said, especially to the minority inner city community, you're not capable of competing in this economy.
Yep.
You are a victim of an unfair system. So guess what? People said, okay, I must be inferior. We then said, oh, by the way, if you stay married, you get less money. So they got divorced. We then said, oh, and more children means more money. So they had lots of kids. You roll that clock forward 30 years, and you've got generations now of kids with no role models, no purpose, no value, and an embedded victimhood. And that's why we have 4,000 people a year shot in Chicago.
Yes, indeed. And I will tell you, that is something that is absolutely close to my heart. I'm sure I saw you liked one of my pictures on Facebook this morning, so you probably know by now that I am also a brown person. So it,
To be honest with you, it doesn't even register to me. I couldn't care less. I'm interested in a person's mind, not the color of their skin.
Well, of course, but I only pointed that out to say that, those areas tend to be predominantly brown areas. I always say brown because I'm just like, I know what the color black is, and I'm not that color. I'm brown, but that's completely different issue. That's a completely different issue.
I'm not white either. I don't know what I am, but I'm not white. I look at a piece of paper and I look nothing like it.
Right. Well, when my nephews were little, when they went to school, they used to call white people peach, which I don't think you're peach either, but
depends how we get tanned, right?
Yeah, right. Well, what would be lovely is if we just call people. How about that? But
I'm all for that. I think we're all humans. We all live on this planet. We're all trying to live our lives. There's a movie out long ago called The Outlaw Josie Wales. And there's some wisdom out of the outlaw Josie Wales when he said to Chief Ten Bears, governments don't get along, people get along.
There you go. Absolutely.
And it's true. It's you and me just going forward to make our lives work, and all the people we bring to the table and saying, how do we make our lives better?
Exactly. But no, I was said that to say, when you pointed out what's going on in Chicago and all that you pointed out about what is going on there, and how the failed, as one of my listeners in the chat just said, failed ideology. Boom, right on point with what you were saying, Miss Claudia, one of my faithful listeners. is exactly right. And, many of us, people of color who point that out, get just eviscerated when we point that out in social media and otherwise. And I'm sure that people who are not people of color probably get it even worse, because how dare you um, say something like that about poor minorities in those situations. But it's absolutely true what you said about that. We're going to go into a break right now, as it is 10:40. It is break time. We are talking to Steve Beaman, who is a Renaissance man, CEO, philanthropist, and all around fabulous guy. We will be back on the other side of the break. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie.
Oh my goodness! So the statist Republicans trotted out Obamacare Light. I feel it is yet another insult to the American people. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, so now we the people are possibly being forced to wait indefinitely before there will be any serious tax cuts, because the powers that be decided not to cut one single tax until after Obamacare is replaced. One of the excuses used to drag the process out is certain Senate procedure rules, and also, if Obamacare is totally brought up for a vote, then the progressives like Chucky Schumer will filibuster and prevent any progress. To that I say bunk, because if they would have done a better job of defending the medical marketplace when Ali Obama was foisting his socialist health-damaging system upon us, perhaps the dilemma they now refer to wouldn't be occurring now. So basically, this drip, drip, drip approach will do little to relieve the burden now faced by the average American, who has to endure it, unlike Congress and President Trump, who enjoy a far superior form of health care. Meanwhile, this Step 1, Step 2, Step 3 approach kicks needed tax reductions further down the road. Those midterm elections will be very interesting, to say the least. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Hi, my name is Willie Lawson of The Willie Lawson Show here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. They told me that I needed to be humble, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I decided to be awesome instead. That's The Willie Lawson Show, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. here on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy, because the truth is not always pleasant.
I'm Ken McClinton, chairman of the Exceptional Conservative Network. Never has the cry for economic liberty been more resounding in urban America than on Election Day 2016. It's the economy. All real change begins with the American entrepreneur. Socialism did not work. Progressivism stole the wealth of individuals and families. You voted for something different, real change. But what does real change look and sound like? It looks like Las Vegas, and it sounds like Freedom Fest 10. Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds, is the popular Liberty-Minded Conference at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas from July 19th to the 22nd. Hear the voices of the urban freedom movement: Deneen Borelli, Larry Elder, Gina Lofton, Helen Riley, Ramesh Wadhwa, and Zayad Abdul-Nawar. Share ideas with powerful, liberty-minded figures like Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Peter Schiff, and keynote speaker William Shatner. Your money, your liberty, your freedom, your city. Come for the real and return with the change. Register now at freedomfest.com. That's freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code TECN. We'll see you there.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we have with us Steve Beaman this morning, and we are talking about the free market economy, the past election, optimism, and the economy. And we were actually talking about the millennials for a moment and about how to get them to be a little more optimistic about the economy and basically why they are generally pessimistic. Steve, I wanted to ask you, how do you think we could get the millennials and actually other people to be more pessimistic, to be more optimistic, and to be a little more energized about and participate in the economy, in the free market?
I think there are a whole host of issues here, and you open up, I think, what is one of the most challenging issues of the day. When we look at some of the drivers of the pessimism and the fear, it has to do not just with an economy that's been stagnant for 8 years, but it has also to do with the changes in social media, the changes in news broadcasts, the way people are inundated day in and day out with negativism on the media. I think that all plays into it. So let's start out and say, number one, let's get the economy to not be in the doldrums. Let's get it up to a 4.5% growth rate. Let's start to deal with some of these deficit issues we have. Let's put that back on track first so jobs are available. That's going to go a long way. But let's also, I hope, try to take our social media and look for some of the good. You look at how now the national media is going after Trump day in and day out. They got down on Mike Pence because he's, quote, faithful to his wife, unquote. I mean, we're looking so much in the media for the negativism of the day. It is reminding of the early 70s when they, I think it was Spiro Agnew who said they're the, nattering nabobs of negativism.
Yes.
And I think he's right. And so I think if we get the economy back on track and we get programs like yours to lift people up, it can go a long way to helping those millennials see that tomorrow can be the beginning of the rest of their life, and it can be brighter than yesterday.
It really is amazing how people can find negative out of positive things. I was talking about the Mike Pence situation on social media yesterday, and it amazed me how even people that I knew to be positive, somehow saw what Mike Pence was doing as far as being faithful to his wife as him objectifying women as sexual objects. And I thought, why? I just couldn't understand that. But I think a couple of things were going on. I think it's one, people not understanding Christianity and not understanding what it means to be a Christian, and also not understanding what it means to be a public figure. I think both of those things.
And let me go even a step further. I would argue that they don't understand what it means to have a faithful marriage. I've known people who've had affairs. Never did they intend to. It was never something they set out to do. They got put in positions where it just developed out of nothing. And what Mike Pence was saying is, I tried to not put myself in those positions. That's not wrong. That's not Christian per se. It's a lifestyle that says I'll be faithful to my spouse. And it's the same thing on the woman's side as the man's side.
Yes. And I tried to articulate that. And what I said in my post was, I said, listen, that is fairly standard. Okay, this is the problem with with looking at the chat while you're on air, because people in the chat room say funny things. I'll tell you in 1 second. I'll tell you what one of my listeners named White Mama just said in a second. But it's fairly standard practice as a Christian to set those standards so that you don't get in trouble.
Right. Now, I agree there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. You don't have to come out as I'm afraid of the opposite sex. But I think what he was saying is, if I can avoid it, it doesn't put a glass ceiling on things, but I try not to put myself in a position where I'll be, exposed to the possibility of a problem. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's personal choice.
Exactly. And what I pointed out to some of the people on the thread was, I said, listen, and the bottom line is, that is their marriage. And I said, and doesn't he have the right to operate however he chooses within the confines of his marriage? I said, listen, I said, he is a very powerful man who is in the public eye. I said, and I would love to think that all women are just very altruistic and don't have, false motives and are always pure when they meet with Mike Pence about whatever business deal. But we all know that's not the case. I said, all it takes, and I said, and the press are absolute vultures. I said, all it takes is for him to be having a business meeting with some woman, for both of them to be smiling the wrong way, and for a picture to be taken, and for someone to make something up. I said, people...
Are you old enough to remember Gary Hart on The Monkey Business?
Yep, absolutely, I certainly am. And again, like you said, avoid trouble. People stumble all the time. So why put yourself in that situation? It's just very common.
To me, it's common sense. But I think, again, it's also making mountains out of molehills. We're trying to create problems where none exist. And I think as we continue to do that, we do breed a certain brand of pessimism. I look at our economy today, and there are things that really do scare me. I don't like the debts. I don't like the deficits. I don't like the underfunded pension plans we have. Illinois is a poster child for that. We're bankrupt. But I do think we as people can overcome it. I think we can build a brighter tomorrow. It will be different than we've had, but it can be bright, and it can fulfill the hopes and aspirations of people. But we have to begin to believe in it and to believe in ourselves and our ability to get there.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure that I point out, I'm glad you brought up the pension system, because it seems that as smart as people are, that many people, and I find this particularly true in the education industry, don't understand basic math when it comes to pensions and how pensions can become bankrupt. And you have a website, I want to make sure I have the name of it correct, that is responsible for financial education. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that works?
Yes.
Because I think that's very important.
Years ago, I decided that I had people after the debacle of the 2008 market meltdown, I had people asking me to run for Congress. And I thought, that's just wrong. I'd be part of the problem. That's not a positive solution. How can I contribute positively? So I created the Society to Advance Financial Education. We are a not-for-profit group, and we're out to provide education to people. If people go to safefinancial.org, it's $9 a month, and you get a wealth of information in there, from an audio library with 26 lessons on financial literacy. I mean, I don't want to over-promote, but I'm telling you, there's just a ton of stuff up there, and it's my way of saying, you know what, we can have a better tomorrow. Let's just educate ourselves to do it.
Steve, there's no such thing as over-promotion. Now, I joined this morning. As soon as I saw it, I got on. I joined because listen, I don't believe in like knowing it all. No such thing as knowing it all, and you always need reminders. So I try to avail myself of as much information as possible. And when I saw how much information was on your website, I was like, oh, I gotta avail myself of this. And you have also on your site three or four different kind of streams to different financial websites and things like that, which I thought in and of itself was just very valuable to have it all in one place. Your website is really fantastic. So I encourage my listeners to definitely go there. Where can we get your book? Tell us the title again as well.
Well, it's called The American Dream Under Fire, and they can get that by writing me at steve@safefinancial.org or visiting Amazon. But again, I would welcome people to go up to Safe. If folks go up there, you've got what are called Safe Insights. There's our video series, Master of Money videos, which I've done for folks, our audio courses. There's just a ton of stuff, and I'd welcome people to exploit it and learn all they can from my background of 30 years.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that you're a self-made millionaire. Very few people don't know, which I really can't stand the narrative of the haves and the have-nots, and they think that the narrative about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is a bunch of buffoonery. It certainly is not. Many of the most famous people, the most wealthy people that you know in the world, do not have a formal college education, dropped out of school, or went through some type of, hardship, do not have, that PhD from Harvard. But it started out from a really brilliant idea, and from good old-fashioned tenacity, hard work, grit, and determination, and just not quitting.
Let's talk about Henry Ford, the Wright brothers.
Absolutely.
Come on up into Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. The list is pretty substantial.
Yep, it certainly is, and that's what and faith in God and giving and just good old fashioned principles is a lot of where people's success comes from, and I that's one of the things that I always want my audience to understand. And many people that I talk to, experts like yourself, when I talk to them and get to the nitty gritty of their success, a lot of times that's where it comes down to. Rarely does someone say, "Oh, it's because of my degree at Wharton Business School." That's where their success comes from.
Well, there's certainly some truth to that too. I don't deny education. If you can go out and go to get a solid undergrad. My daughter just graduated with an economics undergraduate degree from a university. Great, go do it.
Right.
But if you haven't done that, don't let that stop you. That doesn't mean you can't go forward and build yourself into something substantial.
Exactly. Well, I gotta run because I'm a little bit behind. I gotta play one more commercial. But I enjoyed talking to you tremendously. I hope to have you back very soon. And thank you very much for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
My honor, and Godspeed to you and to your listeners.
Absolutely. God bless.
Call ended.
Okay, you are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We will be back in one moment.
Chicago Ranch is involved in helping youth through the snags along the pathway to adulthood. The last 8 years have created greater challenges. Having a president to parade perversion to our youth has generated the need for us to ramp up our character learning 100-fold. Today's youth are confused, and our goal is to give them a fresh understanding of creation, moral clarity, respect for authority. In short, restore absolutes and boundaries. Boys are born boys and girls are born girls, God's design. Right is right even when no one else is doing it. The Exceptional Conservative Network is underway to raise $10,000 to help advance this mission. Together, let's reverse the confusion aimed at our youth. Don't be a spectator. Go to our donation portal and make your financial contribution now. Your gift goes toward helping youth get clarity, moral clarity. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I want to thank everyone in the chat room, Claudia, White Mamba, Willie Lawson, and I hope that you will join us again on Wednesday. Remember, this is all very important because it is your money.